Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is April 6th of 2023, and I'm going to try to remember to wear a hat because my head looks so gross because of the cancer I had removed off the top of my head. Several of you, I mentioned this before a number of times, several of you over time said, left a comment or whatever, Jim, you should have that place on top of your head wow, I should start over, I think. Have it looked at, and I finally did after several years, I think. One reason probably was my ex-wife. We share an apartment along with my grown son, and she had mentioned several times, in the past that I should have that thing looked at on top of my head, and anything she says I try to ignore and go the opposite direction or something, So anyway, let's see if you can, now when I want to show you how gross it looks, it doesn't look that gross. Maybe the camera has a setting for that. Now, I was seeing my doctor every 6 months, my regular doctor. And finally, after, I don't know, several years or whatever, of going every 6 months, I said, what about this place on top of my head? And then he immediately, well, that was quite a while ago because I've switched, I'm using a nurse practitioner or whatever they call that, and I'm very happy with it. And after X number of years, she changed positions to another doctor's office, and I started, I took another nurse practitioner or whatever they call it, doctor practitioner or whatever. But anyway, when the doctor, when I started there, I used, I didn't have to pick him out. I mean, it was just like, but anyway, so I'd been seeing him every 6 months or something, and then, well, anyway, there were several things that that I was not happy with him, and from the very beginning, from the very first time, and then finally I got switched over, and happy with them. But anyway, so it was with him, whenever that was, and after going to him repeatedly, I said, and he just immediately said, oh yeah, that's cancer. And I kind of chuckled, because the way I kind of chuckled like, and then I realized, no, he's serious, about it. Because I would have thought that he would have said, well, let me look at it. Yeah, you better have that checked out. He should have said, Jim, be sure, have something like that. But he just said, yeah, that's cancer. And another thing I didn't like about, I didn't intend, by the way, I have no script. Never have. This might be a better, podcast or broadcast or whatever, blog or whatever you want to. It'd probably be better if I did have a script, but that's just not me. And so therefore I had no idea when I'm starting this and have no idea where it's going to go here in a few minutes. But anyway, he when I first went to him, when I first went to him, well, one thing, all the time that I was going to, this is my stupidity, my stupidity, because before, for the years I was down in, Florida, every time I would go to see a doctor, which back then probably were like once a year or something, the lab work would come back and they'd say, your blood sugar is just too high. You're going to have to watch that, or you're going to be a diabetic or whatever. When I went to this doctor here in, Fort Worth. And, he, checks every my first time or whatever. He was like, oh, you're going to be a diabetic. Oh, you're so close. I was. And that's stupidity on my part because it was so close. I mean, I should have worked to, I had plenty of warning for years. It was so close. It was just in that range. They even had doctors or whatever, they have like 2 different names for it, pre-diabetic or something else, Can't remember now. But, so every time I would go to him and the lab work would come back, he would just be, oh, you're so close. Oh, you're so close. And I thought, he's wanting me to be a diabetic. And then finally, when when it kicked over the few points necessary and moved in, oh, you're a diabetic now. Well, he didn't say it now. Oh, you're a diabetic. It's, he says, I'll go and get you the stuff. And he just ran down the hall and he brought back the stuff, the diabetic, the probes, the sticker things, and this test strip, and he brought back all the stuff, gave it to me, which I thought was kind of unusual. Anyway, then I, on the first visit or second visit, something like that, what was it? I think the first time for something, I was brand new, and I said, just give me the script, so he gave it to me and then I took it. But then, I didn't intend to do that all the time, but, so like the second, time I go, 6 months later, maybe a year later, I don't know, I go and, I said, do you want to give me the script or, oh no, it's a federal law now that we can't give you the script. It has to go into has to go to the pharmacy. And bing, I knew he was lying. And when somebody does, I don't want to say that everybody who lies to me is like name circled, or whatever, but when he did it, and I just knew, and so I'm thinking, okay, does he get, when he, faxes this to the pharmacy, does a copy go to a pharmaceutical company so they can say, oh, Dr. So-and-so, let's say Dr. Smith, that's not his name, Dr. Smith just, and make a mark down here so that, X number of prescriptions, or things especially like for diabetes, because that's a whole, diabetic medication, the test strips, all this kind of stuff. That's a lot of money from just one patient, and if it's going to, and there's different companies that make, different test strips and all that, meters. I can't get to it now, it's over there. And I just knew, Now, maybe he gets 10 people that, that he writes prescriptions for, that are diabetic now, and maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 25 that he gets credit for, and it goes to the, company, and they know. So that's a trip for him and his wife to Hawaii. And that's maybe, something else, maybe X amount of money. Maybe that's a cruise or something. I know that's the way. And so, boom, he had a couple of strikes on him, right away. But anyway, when he did the thing, when I finally asked him, I said, what about this place on top of, I don't know how I have a friend who was in the military, so he has VA, benefits. And also he worked for the federal government, as a civilian employee for the federal government. And he has good health care through them. And it seems to me like they take care of everything. In fact, he goes to KU, I think, in Kansas City, Missouri area. That's where he lives. And he goes to KU, and I had to go there a few times. When I had the tropical fish shop, I think it was KU that I went to, because their laboratory, their research division or something, was doing some type of testing of, and so they needed to buy X number of fish, tropical fish, for whatever research they were doing. And I got the contract, so I had to go over there. I think that might have been the only time I was ever over there. But I mean, the place is follow the lines, the paint, follow to where you go. But anyway, when he goes with a problem, medical problem, and my friend, and when he goes there, he goes to see his regular doctor, I guess. And then the regular doctor will say, well, you better have such and such checked. And so he'll send him down, to another building probably, but, okay, you leave here and then you just go over and you go to see the other doctor. Where when I go to the doctor, of course this is a small doctor's office. When I go there, they say, okay, well, we'll schedule to have your, such and such done. And then, I have to call the doctor, call that doctor and make an appointment. And then they say, well, we'll see you in 3 weeks, or whatever. This friend who has VA, and they do sort of the same thing. And I'm kind of confused about, he gets them integrated, work together. I would think I have my trouble just keeping track of one. But I'm not sure how it works in civilized countries, unlike the United States, where like in the UK and Canada and places like that, if you can, go there and then they just send you down the hall, or, well, of course it depends on what town you're in, stuff, but yeah. Anyway, what was I going to say? Because I don't remember. Although one way, I don't have any, but I do usually bookmark something or a tab for it. I'm still using LastPass Password Manager, and they were like, I think, the #1 password manager place, and I've been happy with them, but they had they lost a lot of credibility, and a lot of people I think have turned, and changed a lot of people, because they had some major security leaks and things like that, and they didn't report out. I think eventually they did. They didn't really report out the information, and did some other things. And they were doing some, and then it turned out they were doing some things that they shouldn't have been doing. Nothing, like illegal. I mean, no, they weren't stealing from somebody or whatever, but they just weren't operating at the highest standard that they should be operating. I think maybe you're still using LastPass. If so, I think I'll put this link here below. By the way, I did go and eventually tried to change from LastPass, and I looked on YouTube at recommended sites to go to, or did a search, what are the best sites or whatever, and there was like 3, 4, 5 different recommended, sites. LastPass was no longer on the list, and I finally signed up for one, and it was, I think, about a little bit over $50 or something for the year, and I signed up, and boom, right away, I couldn't get it. I paid the money, and I couldn't get it to activate. I forget what it. I can't remember now what it was that that came up. So, and then I tried to go through them to see, okay, what am I doing wrong or whatever, and it just eventually got to fuck it, and I just have stayed so far with LastPass, but I didn't get my money back, so I didn't try to get it back. I did. Well, I did if I'd have gone there, and if they'd have, if there was something that popped up, I forget what it was. That I think it had to do. What had to do at the very beginning, like establishing your thing, and it didn't like any of my anyway. So anyway, if you're still with LastPass, you should have probably got this, but I will. It'll be listed so you can click and go there and see what they're saying. One of the things that they say and that other people were saying is, okay, here, yeah, you change your base key deviation function to a minimum of 600,000 or something. And so anyway, I did that. I said, I changed that. That's the first thing I changed. What else? Another thing about my doctor that I went to with, he was so happy. I mean, he was just, he ran, from the thing down to come back and give me the supplies. And faxed the information, of course, that was quite a few years ago. But, I asked him, I said, why don't they, and he said, the federal government doesn't allow that anymore. You can't give a patient the script. It has to be faxed. It has to be sent to the, to the pharmacy. And I thought, that was it. I mean, okay. Now, like I said, okay, a bunch of people lie. I don't. I don't know why. Is it because I went to Catholic school? I don't know, I don't lie. I've even made like a joke out of that when I would tell something at the hospital or something where I worked, especially the hospital I worked at 9 or 10 years. It was in my hometown, and we were like a family. It was a small hospital. And I got where I would tell somebody something, and they would, oh, Jimmy, you're so, not Jimmy, oh, Jim, you're so funny, or whatever. I said, and then actually I got to where, and I never told mainly the ER nurses or the ER doctor or something. I never told them something that was, made up ever. Sure, I did the thing about Barney Fife and just having, to begin with when it started out. I said, well, I don't have any bullets from it. Or like when every 5 years they have a thing for the employees, to go to every 5 years. If you were, after you work there 5 years, you get to go and they get a dinner, and they give out some gifts and things. And next 5 years, and you've been there 10 and that type of stuff. So I continued with my story, and it was then like, well, man, like when I'd come back from the thing, 5-year 5-year deal, whatever. Oh, did you go to your? Yeah, I went. And actually, I never went. That's right, I never went to any of them. I still got the thing though, you know. But then oh yeah, like the ER doctor, you know. What do you get for? And I said, well, you get such and such, which were, you know, the true things, of course. You know, you get this, you know, you get a certificate, you get a pen, you know, 5-year pen, 10, you know, whatever. And then I would do, you know, then I did, and I finally got one bullet. Now I can't put it in my gun, but I can keep it in my pocket. I have one bullet, you know, and you know, and then 5 years later, you know, I would, I do that. I of course kept track of, you know, I mean, I didn't write them down or anything. I just knew, and then I do, oh, you know, now I've got, you know, I can put it in my gun or I just whatever. And I thought all that was pretty funny, but anyway, this doctor, back to the doctor. The actual only diabetic supply, well, of course I get prescriptions, you know, I get those. But so far as the test strips and all that kind of, the meter, of course, why would I need a new meter? I mean, I got, you know, that will work forever, you know, outlast me. But well, finally, you know, I ran out. Well, you know, I told the doctor, or whatever, you know, I told him, whatever, you know, hey, I'm out of the supplies, the test strips or whatever. No, you know, nothing happened. And I got a feeling that the doctor only made money maybe, you know, on the, well, the federal government, by the way, stepped in and made some type of a ruling for all doctors and the pharmaceutical salesmen that show up at these doctors' offices and that kind of stuff, that a doctor, you know, a doctor can't get money or vacations or whatever it is because of, you know, putting somebody on a medication. And anyway, so finally, after several years of whatever being without testing strips or whatever, I mentioned at the pharmacy. So I contact the pharmacy. I need a refill on such and such. No, your doctor has to give you that. And I thought, well, when that first happened, I thought, well, they used the wrong words, you know, give you, you know. It would be like, you know, write a prescription for that or something. So, you know, a year goes by. Hey, I'm in no hurry, you know. And I, you know, contact the pharmacy again, said, you know, you know, and it was the same thing. Your doctor has to do that for you. So finally, I think that's the last time, or just when I went. Of course, by the way, I had switched away from that doctor, the doctor that's in charge of that place, to one of the other who have been great. But so I went, and they were also breaking in a new employee there also. But I said, you know, I'm out of diabetic supplies. I said, I've called the pharmacy a couple of times over the years and mentioned, you know, and they've said something about, you know, the doctor has to give it to me or whatever. And so there was an extra number of people, instead of one person being, or two. Usually it's like, you know, you come in and the one person does, you know, your blood, the simple stuff, your blood, that's not even on an RN or anything, you know, but it's, you know, somebody qualified, you know. And you know, they leave, and then the doctor or doctor practitioner, whatever, comes in, and that's sort of basically it, you know. Unless they, you know, tell the, you know, the nurse or whatever to give me an injection or something like that. But anyway, so I went in, and they had this kind of confusion there or whatever. And then I mentioned, you know, hey, I've been out of pharmaceutical, or I've been out of diabetic supplies for a long, long time. And I said, so, And I said, I've called the pharmacy, and they say the doctor has to, give it to you, or whatever. And I said, I don't know what that's about, but, and then they all looked at each other. And I think they might have had a little smile on their face, or maybe it was not a smile, maybe it was like, oh shit, And I still haven't got any, diabetic supplies. Anyway, let's see, I took care of, oh, okay. I still have not learned everything that I need to. I haven't learned anything hardly on my Galaxy cell phone. And I mentioned, but I'll mention again. No, I won't mention it because I mentioned it in a video. You're supposed to watch all my videos. I should have some way to see if you really did, Things are working out pretty good. I'm using my, B-Link 2. And so, let's see. What's next here? YouTube? Oh, okay. I really like the view of the fifth column. I like his, oh, you can't see that, sorry. I like view of the fifth column. I've watched a lot of the, aircraft, airport type things, air traffic control things. I watch, which I really shouldn't. I watch a lot of the car chases and things like that, and it upsets me. And I get upset watching them, but I do watch them. And although sometimes, like, I have to, I have to jump ahead or something because some of them are hour and a half, 2 hour car chases or something. Been watching the raccoon, well, sort of. I watched a bunch of, I mentioned this before, my ex-wife is, into animals and mainly cats, but, animals. And she told me about James Blackwood, the raccoon whisperer. And so I watched, but after a while, quite a while, you get sort of the same, thing. But anyway, he's sick, so every I don't know how many months I just go wonder how's he doing, I think mainly because I heard him coughing several times in the video, and I could tell that he wasn't, it was like sort of like me and my place on top of my head, I think. So I checked on him from time to time, and then I told Darlene, and also my grown son that shares this apartment with us, he was also interested in, so I updated them on the situation. I like the Young Turks show, video. I watch those. Let's see, PT 109 and Kennedy Island. Spectrum is, okay, I see here, Spectrum is adding data caps. Huh. This guy kind of dragged, but anyway, he does give a lot of information about things, but he makes it, he should condense it more or something. Avoid, let's see, what's this say? Avoid Android TV on your Windows 11 PC. I haven't watched that. I've been watching a lot of these people that are up in Utah and up in that area that tow vehicles out of sand, out of water or snow or whatever. I've cut back on some, on some of them. I've got a couple, favorites that I kind of kind of chick. Um, 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 I don't want to talk too much about, politics, because people, there's a certain number of, well, I think all of us, we don't want to hear about it. But I'm just amazed at the cult following that Donald Trump has. I'm just amazed that, now of course he's lost, as things have progressed, he's lost people. But he's still, he could get the nomination for the as a Republican candidate for to run for president or whatever. That could still happen. But I'm just amazed that Republican senators and House members have been supporting him. I understand he has a whole bunch of hardcore people, and if you say something about Trump, these people are going to turn it. If you're a Republican, they're going to turn against you. And so I can understand where they might want to try to get out from under it somehow. But I'm surprised that they line up, and that also, of course, I'm not surprised about Fox News. Fox News is either a front group for the Republican Party, or it's a front group for I don't know, neo-Nazis, it's just Fox News is not news. And it's just amazing that, like when Trump was charged the other day, yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, that they lined up for him, they lined up for him too. I think they're going to, try to get away from him, but it's just amazing that, by the way, if you look at and it's, honest, my honest opinion, I could be wrong about things. I was wrong once. I got married. That's a joke. It's not a joke. But it's just amazing that the people who, I know what I was going to say. I got sidetracked. If you look at my videos and the WordPress blog that I did for years, and if you look at, if you could go back or whatever, I was born and raised a Catholic. I no longer consider myself a Catholic. Not because of molestation of boys or anything like that. It's because of the bishops, Catholic bishops of the United States, being political and being, opposed to the Democrats because of, abortion and the various things they were. But they're like, they're called princes of the church, and they live like that. And that's the reason that, I said, no, I'm no longer a Catholic. And, but during all this time, and like I worked with, way back when I was a kid, my mother's family and everything were, Baptist, and they hated, my mother's father was a member of the Klan. But back when he was a member of the KKK, I don't know how many, white males in the United States, it was like, like the Rotary Club or the Masons or whatever, it was like a group, and they just, but I still think that they, they were racist and everything else. And her father definitely was. He wouldn't go to the wedding of his only daughter because it was a Catholic wedding, and he wouldn't go to it. But anyway, like I worked at the hospital, the little small hospital I worked at, really nice, well, more than one, born again Christian nurses or whatever, real nice people. And but hated Catholics and hated Halloween, oh, it's a satanic cult, whatever. And it's a bunch of kids going out getting candy, and that type of, oh, no, But over all these years and things, I blogged it, hey, these born-again Christian people, I work the midnight shift, and they wake me up knocking on the door, and, and I go there and I try to talk nice to them, and they just won't, they won't. And I don't, I didn't say, when they knock on the door, that I go, what are you goddamn fucking people doing? I work the midnight shift or anything. I didn't do anything like that. I'd go, oh, and we'd like to invite you to our church. And I'd say, well, I'm a Catholic. Of course, I wasn't a Catholic then, and I wasn't going to church and the whole thing. But still, and I would try to use, and they would, sometimes they would just push it so far that, that they would wake me up, and I'd go to the door, and they'd say, "I'd like to invite you to come to our church." I said, "Well, thank you very much, but I'm a Catholic." And then they would, instead of saying, "Oh, okay, well, just thanks a lot," or they could even handed me, "Well, could I give you this?" And I would have taken it, and I did, "Okay, thank you," and whatever. But then it would be like, "Can I ask you a question?" And then in my brain, I'd go, "Oh no, please don't do this," Well, have you been saved? And then I'd say, well, I was baptized, Holy Communion, confirmation, I was an altar boy, or whatever, I think, oh, but then they'd say something, and I said, well, that's where confession comes into, and then they'd say, well, in the Bible it says, and then I'd say, okay, the Bible that you're holding was transcribed by monks and whatever over a long period of time before Martin Luther King or not Martin, before what's his name, and I would say they kept what you changed it to the King James version, and other versions you've changed it, but you wouldn't have a Bible, and they would just continue. And this one group, that were there, and I was trying to be nice all the way along, Can I ask you one more question? And I thought, please don't do this. Well, if you were to die now, do you know where you would go? And I said, I would hope that I'd be going down to hell with all the people that you condemn or whatever. I sure as hell wouldn't want, and then they actually almost fell off of my porch. But I spoke on my WordPress, WordPress and blogs and all that kind of stuff. Good about the born again people, and I've said things like hey, if you're going to have a neighbor, probably the best neighbor you could have would be somebody who's born again Christian or whatever. They'd probably come and visit you in the hospital, and if you were sick, they'd probably bring you over. I didn't mention the thing about Halloween and other stuff like that. But anyway, up until the election of Donald Trump. Anyway, when Donald Trump, was running, and when all the statistics and things were coming out when he was running, and the first time when he was actually elected, the ex-wife, who's never voted in her life and really isn't interested in politics at all, except everybody gets kind of interested now. Kind of, you can't avoid it, unfortunately. She said, well, I don't know, Donald Trump's going to win. And I said, I don't think so. And she said, well, it's real close. And I said, yeah, it's unbelievably, close. I said, the born-again Christians, there isn't any way. Maybe they won't vote for a Democrat, but they're not going to vote for him. I don't think that they're going to vote for him because of, and I ran off, the prostitutes and a bunch of this stuff. I said, I think what they'll do is just stay at home. They probably can't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat for president, or they can't, bring themselves to, vote for this or that, but they're not. I said, I think they'll just stay at home. I had to take an Uber over to vote, and on the way over, very short distance, the guy said, "Oh, so you're going to vote?" I said, "Yep." And I said, I'm voting the right way." And he said, "Oh, who are you? You're voting for Trump?" And I said, "No." And he says, "Well, he says you're voting for Hillary Clinton." And I said, "Well, I'm not happy about it, but I can't vote for Donald Trump." And he said, "I'm a veteran," and he says, "I voted for him." I'm not sure he said he voted or he's going to, because it was early in the morning. And I said, "And you're a veteran, and you're voting for Donald Trump?" He says, "Yes, yes." And then he said some good things about Donald Trump, well, things that he thought were good, And I said, "Well," I said, "with the comments that he's made about the military, and you're voting, oh yeah, he's a strong, And I said, he has said that. I said, I went to military, high school. Actually, I didn't mention that actually Trump went to military high school and took ROTC or whatever in college or whatever, senior ROTC or something. I didn't mention it, but I said, he has said that he knows more about the military than the military people who serve in the military. And then I quoted some other things that he'd said like that. And he said, "Donald Trump never said that." And I said, "Yes, he did." I said, "Look it up, And then I think I mentioned the bone spur thing or whatever. I'm surprised I got all that in there. Anyway, he was voting. So when I voted and I had to take an Uber home, I took the Uber home, and the guy was a veteran, and he told me that he voted for Donald Trump. But I still thought that the born-again Christian people, that there was just no way, that they could bring themselves to vote for Donald Trump. And I was wrong. Of course, the ex-wife says, "Well, you were wrong." And I said, "No, I said that the born-again Christian people would be, a deciding factor, and that I just couldn't, And then I made an entry, one or two on my thing here saying, okay, all my life, I've said, good things about the born-again Christians, the Baptists, or whatever. No more. They are not religious people. They are not people of the book. And that is it. That's it. That they could bring themselves to vote for, Donald Trump, which blows my mind, that they could do that or would do that. So, how did we get on that subject? Jim's mind is wondering how it can work with so little blood or something. I don't know. What else? Laurel and Hardy. I think everything that they did was so. Even the stuff that was silent comedy was so great. Really. What else? I think that's it. That's all. Wait a minute. No. Okay. Yeah. Oh, one thing I might real quick mention. Nah, I won't go into that. I'm looking at. Oh, you're not looking at it. Sorry. Okay, here we go. I need somebody to control the screen or something for me. Got my Sputnik shirt on. That's not an old one, by the way. I mean, that's a new one. And anyway, I think I've been doing this long enough. So thank you very much for watching.